Hey guys, tonight we slip into worn-out boots and tug a too-tight bonnet down over our ears. The dust clings to your eyelashes. The oxen are groaning. The air smells like sweat leather and distant manure. You've barely left Independence, Missouri, and your socks are already damp. Welcome to the Oregon Trail, where every hopeful start is already a slow, painful lesson in regret. You grip the reins of a wagon you don't actually get to ride in. That's the first surprise. Most people picture covered wagons as cozy little moving cabins, but no, those bumpy wooden boxes are storage units, not seats. You'll be walking, and walking, and walking. The average person hoofed 15 to 20 miles a day in layers of clothing that trap heat like a greenhouse and absorb sweat like a sponge. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere along the trail tonight, or more likely from a comfy couch, drop your location and local time in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're only a few hours in, but the excitement is already thinning like the soles of your boots. Dust-fine, clinging chalky dust has already worked its way into your mouth. Your tongue feels like an old rug. You try to drink from your water barrel, but it's warm and tastes faintly like wooden slats in despair. Every time the wagon hits a rock, the barrels slosh and the bucket bangs. You wince not because it's loud, but because it's precious. Every drop matters. There won't be any gas stations or convenience stores out here. Just maybe a questionable puddle and a prayer. Flies are everywhere. They cling to your bonnet strings, your collar, the sweat pooling at your neck. You slap them absent-mindedly and feel the crunch of one between your fingers. You don't even flinch. You're already turning into someone else. Your traveling companions are equally dusty. A baby cries somewhere in the caravan. A man swears at a wheel. Someone tries to sing, but the tune dies halfway through a verse. It's hot. You feel it in your shoulders, your back, your calves. The trail goes on winding through low hills and open fields. It looks beautiful, but there's a quiet menace in that beauty. Every mile looks just like the last one, and tomorrow will look like this too. Mainstream history likes to paint this part of the journey as the hopeful beginning, but that's mostly revisionist optimism. The reality was more like welcome to the grind. No one had air conditioning. No one had padded soles or trail mix. They had lard biscuits, hand-me-down boots, and a deepening sense of what did we just get ourselves into. Historians still argue whether most travelers genuinely understood what was ahead. Many diaries show a strange optimism early on, notes about fresh breezes and sunrises, but within days the tone shifts. The word regret starts to pop up. So does blisters. By the second week, one entry simply reads, "So tired. Hate cornmeal." Speaking of food, tonight's dinner is likely dried beans and stale bread with a side of regret. No fire tonight, there's no wood in this stretch. You gnaw on the edge of a biscuit so dry it echoes in your skull. Someone offers you pickled cabbage from a jar. It's warm. You eat it anyway. And the silence, oh the silence. It's not peaceful, it's unnerving. You'd think wide open spaces would feel freeing, but instead they press down on you. There's nothing out here to muffle your thoughts. The constant crunch of footsteps on gravel becomes a rhythm like a heartbeat you didn't ask for. Quirky detail of the day. Some folks tried rubbing axle grease on their faces to keep the dust off. It didn't work obviously, but at least they looked shiny, kind of like waxed corn husks. The sun begins to dip low and the colors shift into muted golds and soft purples. You think maybe this is the part where it all feels worth it. Then a gnat flies into your mouth. You spit. Another mile. You pass a broken crate on the trail, splintered wood, and a cracked porcelain cup. Someone must have tossed it to lighten their load. That's another truth: you will discard things you once considered precious. Keepsakes, books, even wedding dresses. The trail strips you down one sentimental item at a time. By the time the first stars appear, your body is sore in places you didn't know existed. Your feet throb. Your arms ache from holding the reins. Your shoulders burn from the sun. And you haven't even crossed a river yet. That'll come later. Much later. With plenty of misery. You lie down on the thin blanket you brought, roll up a coat as a pillow, and try not to think about the sound of coyotes. Or the fact that someone in the wagon behind you has a persistent cough. You try to sleep, but your mind is still walking. You haven't even lasted a full day yet. You're only halfway through your second day on the trail when the first snap echoes down the line. At first, it's unclear what broke. Was it a tree limb? A branch underfoot? Then someone ahead yells a word you're going to hear far too often over the coming weeks: Axel. Your wagon has stopped. Everyone else does too. Oxen huff. Children grumble. Flies don't seem to notice. You walk up to the commotion, and there it is, a wooden axle cleanly split near the wheel. The kind of break that doesn't care how careful you were or how many prayers you mumbled before the journey. The wagon leans at an awkward angle like a tired beast finally giving up. Wagon parts were carved by hand packed tight and hoped to last the 2,000-mile journey. But this trail eats wood like termites at a lumber sale. One wrong jolt, one sharp rock, one overpacked crate, and you're stuck. Some folks carried spares, sure. Others just improvised with whatever branches they could find, some rope, and a level of desperation that bordered on artistry. While the men mostly fiddle with tools and wedges, you're handed a task: find water. Again. Because every stop becomes a reason to hydrate the oxen, refill bottles, or wash wounds. Not that there's always water to find. You trudge into a thicket with a tin cup and hope. The sun overhead is brutal, hammering down through your bonnet. Your feet already ache. Your knees don't like crouching anymore. You see a shallow streamlet and wonder if it's safe. It's probably not. But your options are maybe get sick or definitely dehydrate. You choose the former. Historians still debate how often wagons truly broke down. Some say it was weekly, others claim more like monthly, but first-hand accounts agree on one thing. It always felt like the worst possible moment. As you return, you spot a family patching a wheel with strips of rawhide. The smell hits you first. Something pungent and vaguely sour, animal hide not yet cured, soaked in river water and tied tight to keep the spokes from rattling. You offer the water. One of the oxen drinks so greedily it chokes a little. The other stares at you, glassy-eyed, its ribs showing a little too clearly through its hide. You quietly name it Hazel, even though you shouldn't. Not out here. Because here's the thing, the wagon isn't just a vehicle, it's your home, pantry, closet, bed, and lifeline all in one. And when it breaks, your whole life sits in limbo. You're not just inconvenienced, you're exposed. In the wide open prairie with no shade, no tool shed, no mechanic on the way. And while the wagon sits idle, you notice just how much time you're spending beside it, not in it. Because most people didn't ride. That's another trail myth. Riding was a luxury reserved for the sick, the very young, or the very dramatic. The rest of you walk because the wagon is too full and too fragile to carry your laziness. Your boots are starting to wear thin. One of the seams has split, and you try to ignore the way a pebble has wedged under your heel. A woman nearby has wrapped her feet in rags. Another man walks barefoot now because his soles gave out entirely. The path grinds down everyone, and it starts with the feet. Some folks tried to pad their boots with pages from their family Bible. Others traded heirlooms for a decent pair from another wagon. One diary mentions a woman using bark as insoles. That didn't go well. And the wagons. Even when they're working, they're loud. The constant creak of wood, the groan of leather straps, the rumble of uneven wheels. It's not a peaceful ride, it's a symphony of strain. You remember reading once that a wagon could carry about 2,000 pounds. That sounds like a lot until you realize how fast it adds up. Food, water, tools, spare parts, clothing, bedding, heirlooms, weapons, books, children's toys. Every pound counts. And every extra pound means another jolt when the wheels hit a rut. Quirky fact of the day. Some travelers would grease their wagon axles with bacon fat when proper grease ran out. It worked, until the smell attracted bears, or other travelers, depending on how hungry they were. Eventually the wagon's patched. Barely. The axle is lashed together with metal bands and twine, and someone says it'll hold. No one believes them, but you move anyway. Always forward. Always walking. You don't say goodbye to Hazel, not yet, but you glance back. The trail stretches ahead like a dare. The sun lowers and the horizon glows orange. You walk a little slower now, every muscle stiff, every toe complaining. The dust rises with each step, and your teeth crunch on it like sand between crackers. That wagon wheel is going to break again. You just hope it waits until tomorrow. You wake to a sound you can't place, half-grown, half-wet thump. It's still dark, and your body protests as you sit up. Every joint has stiffened overnight. Your mouth is dry. Your legs ache. You shift your weight and realize your blanket is damp with dew, or maybe from the leaking water barrel beside you. Then you see it. Hazel is lying on her side, motionless, eyes open, tongue slack, ribs unmoving. The oxen are what make the journey possible. They're not just beasts of burden, they are your engine, your traction, your companions, and sometimes your comfort. You didn't think you'd get attached, but watching Hazel go from swaying beside you to this limp heap, it hits you hard. And it's not just you. A child a few wagons over begins to cry. Her family's cow lies beside Hazel, also still. This happens more than people admit. Historians still argue whether more oxen were lost to overwork, starvation, or bad water. But one thing is clear, you rarely made it to Oregon with the same animals you started with. You name them, you feed them apple cores and crusts when you can, but in the end, they drop and you move on. You spend part of the morning trying to lighten the wagon. One cow down means less power, and that means less weight. You open a chest. There's a copper kettle your grandmother gave you. It's beautiful, heavy, useless. You leave it in the dirt. Someone else tosses out a spinning wheel. Another wagon chucks a small organ, a full organ, can you believe it? It bounces once, then lies still in the dust, silent forever. Even the sentimental things get reclassified as dead weight. You might think losing a cow means a break from walking. Nope. It means more walking. Because now you have to distribute the load differently, or worse, take on extra burden yourself. You strap a sack to your shoulders and resume the trail. Hazel's absence lingers behind you like a pulled tooth, empty, raw, and hard to stop tonguing in your mind. And here's the cruel irony: people cared more about losing animals than strangers. A cow dying meant you might not make it. A traveler dying. Well, they probably shouldn't have eaten the river water. Today's sun is relentless. You shade your eyes and squint ahead. The land is open, impossibly wide, stretching out with no end in sight. It's beautiful in that I wish I were home kind of way. Miles of short grass, the occasional twisted tree. Some movement in the distance, maybe deer, maybe wolves. You don't investigate. Your lips crack by midday. You try not to lick them. It just makes things worse. By now you've heard that one of the younger boys, Sam, maybe has a cough. Not a little cleared my throat kind of thing, but a deep, racking, can't catch your breath kind. It's bad. His mother tries to make tea with dried mint, but they're low on water, and every ounce matters more than comfort. Quirky detail. Some folks used to believe that if you tied a blue ribbon around a cow's tail, it would ward off bad luck and illness. You saw someone do it yesterday. The cow still died. Lunch today is a joke. You tear into a bit of jerky so hard it nearly yanks a molar loose. Someone offers you a piece of parched corn. It tastes like wood chips soaked in regret. A child nearby crunches loudly on what must be the world's oldest biscuit. Food becomes ritual. You don't eat because you're hungry, you eat because you're supposed to. And the options are slim salted pork, cornmeal, mush, dried apples, and sour coffee if you're lucky. If not, just gnaw on a stick and pretend it's licorice. You stop at a shallow stream by late afternoon. You kneel beside it. The water glistens, reflecting the sky in gentle ripples. It looks clean, but you know better. Historians note that dysentery and other waterborne diseases were among the biggest killers on the trail. People drank from whatever they could find: streams, puddles, even wagon ruts. You filter it with a cloth and hope. That's the extent of your purification system. Sam's cough has gotten worse. His wagon lags behind. Someone suggests they stay back for a day to rest, but the group doesn't wait. You keep walking. That's the unspoken rule: if you can't keep up, you're left behind. As evening creeps in, the trail dips slightly, and you see a sight that chills you more than the night wind: a cow's skeleton, sun-bleached ribs like ivory cage bars. Someone has tied a broken shoe to its horn, as if to say, here lies one more lost step. The sun sets in swirls of purple and rose. You sit again by the wagon. You eat a few scraps of boiled flour paste and rest your head against a roll of rough canvas. You're asleep in seconds, dreaming of green grass, of shoes that fit, of Hazel alive again, chewing calmly beside the fire. You wake once in the middle of the night to the sound of coyotes howling across the prairie, and something else, a child's voice crying, soft, far away. Then silence. You start walking before the sun rises. Your breath puffs out in little clouds quickly swallowed by the cold morning air. It's a harsh contrast: freezing at dawn, blazing by midday. Your fingers are stiff, your nose drips, and someone's boot crunches through a patch of frost like it's walking on broken glass. There's no time for mourning. Hazel is gone. Sam's wagon is nowhere to be seen. You glance back once, but the trail waits for no one. Today is a water day, or more accurately, a lack of water day. The canteens are light. The oxen's tongues hang from their mouths like worn belts. Your own thirst wraps around your throat like a too-tight scarf. You imagine a tall glass of lemonade, maybe with ice condensation running down the sides. And then you remember ice is a luxury. Glasses are a fantasy. Lemons, not even in dreams. The trail leads toward a river. You can see it gleaming in the distance, silver and promising. Spirits lift. One woman even starts humming. A man throws his hat in the air. Big mistake, it lands in a thorn bush, and he spends the next 10 minutes swearing at it. But the river is real, and that's the problem. See, on the map, the river crossing looked simple. Walk down, wade across, climb up the other side. Easy, right? That's how they described it at the trading post. Wrong. The banks are steep and muddy. The water runs fast, too fast. And it's wider than anyone remembers it being in the stories. You stare at it, this churning cold snake slithering across your only path west. Some wagons could float, they said. They didn't say how well. Historians still argue whether it was better to ford rivers directly or use makeshift ferries. Both options were dangerous. Fording meant walking your animals through strong current while keeping the wagon from tipping. Ferries were slow, costly, and not always available. Most people took their chances. And now so do you. The oxen hesitate. They always do. One steps forward, then backward. Someone tries to lead it by the reins. Another wagon charges in too fast. The wheel dips. A scream. Someone loses a boot. Supplies float away, blankets, barrels, even a wooden chair. You see it bob downstream like a lazy swimmer. Your wagon is next. You strip down to your underclothes, tie your boots together, and sling them around your neck. The water is glacial. It bites at your skin, climbs your legs, and steals your breath. You guide the oxen as best you can, wading beside them, slipping on rocks, nearly falling. Your heart pounds like a drum in your ears. You lose a sack. It tumbles out of the wagon and disappears beneath the surface. You don't even know which one. You hope it wasn't the one with the flour. Someone behind you shouts they've fallen. Their wagon is tipping. A child screams. But there's no turning back. You reach the far bank. You collapse to your knees, panting. Your feet are numb. Your legs tremble. But you made it. Mostly. You check the wagon. Some things are soaked. The corner of a diary curls with water damage. Your matches are useless now. A few tins clatter to the ground, dented and leaking. You look back across the river and see the others still struggling. One ox is missing. A woman kneels in the mud weeping. Her hands are empty. Quirky tidbit. Some pioneers used inflated pig bladders as flotation devices for their valuables. They tied them to trunks and hoped they'd bob like corks. It worked about as well as you'd expect something called a pig bladder raft to work. That night you build a weak fire with what you can scavenge. Wet wood mostly. It smokes more than it burns. You dry your socks on a stick. They smell like riverweed. You'll still wear them tomorrow. Supper is minimal. Half a boiled potato and a scrape of grease. One woman chews on raw onion like it's an apple. No one judges her. The river still murmurs nearby, its current whispering secrets in a language you don't want to understand. Sleep comes in patches tonight. Your dreams are fragmented mud, rushing water, the feeling of falling. You jolt awake once thinking you're drowning. But it's only your blanket tangled around your legs. The stars above are indifferent. Cold pinpricks in a velvet sky. And tomorrow might not have a river. But it won't have mercy either. You start the day with moldy bread and a mouthful of regret. Breakfast is a small hunk of hardtack, so dense you have to bash it with a rock before your teeth can even make a dent. It's dry, tasteless, and probably home to a few weevils. You decide not to look too closely. There's no butter. There's never any butter. Your stomach growls in protest. You hush it with a few sips of lukewarm water and press on. The trail waits for no one, and hunger is just part of the background now, like blisters or sunburns. A permanent low-pitched ache. Today's terrain is rougher. Rocks jut from the soil like knuckle bones. The wheels jolt with every bump and your knees feel each one. You pass another discarded item, a frying pan. Still greasy. Probably dropped out of someone's overpacked wagon during a jolt. No one bothers to pick it up. Food, when you can get it, is repetitive. Bland. Almost cruel. Salt pork salty enough to dry your lips from the inside out. Beans that crunch even after cooking. Parched corn. Dried apples so leathery they fight back. And always hardtack. Historians still debate whether hardtack was meant to be eaten or just gnawed for comfort. Some folks soaked it in coffee. Others fried it in bacon grease. A few just gave up and used it as a plate. One man even claimed to use it as a hammer. And speaking of coffee, yours is gone. You used the last of the grounds yesterday, and it's too soon to trade for more. What you drink this morning is more like water with aspirations. You pretend it helps. The oxen move slowly today. You can't blame them. Their ribs show. Their hooves crack. One limps. You whisper encouragement even though you're not sure they understand. Maybe it's more for you than them. Your hands are chapped. The wind has picked up dry and sharp like sandpaper across your face. Dust settles in your ears, your scalp, your soul. You scratch your neck, and a small cloud puffs off your collar. Lunch is just as uninspiring. A spoonful of lard on a hunk of stale bread. It slides down your throat and sits heavy in your gut. Still, it's energy. That's all food is now, fuel. The days of flavor of mealtime conversation and silverware feel like something from another life. A child asks if there's candy. The question feels so innocent it almost breaks your heart. Someone tries to lighten the mood with a song. It starts with "Oh, Susanna," but quickly loses steam when the singer forgets the lyrics. You hum the rest silently, if only to remember what music feels like. Quirky fact. Some folks brought barrels of vinegar to mix with water and make it safer. Others swore by lemon peel, dried ginger, or mustard seeds to settle their stomachs. Spoiler, none of it really helped. You pass a trading camp in the late afternoon, just a few lean-tos and a wagon with one wheel missing. They offer coffee in exchange for bullets, or sugar for boots. You consider it. Your soles are thin, but your craving for caffeine is deeper. In the end, you trade nothing. You can't afford to. Not today. You eat dinner in silence, what passes for soup. Really, it's hot water with bits of dried beef and a floating carrot stub. You chew each bite like it's your last because it might be. Everyone else does too. There's no conversation, only chewing, swallowing, and staring into the dying fire. You think about dessert, not because it's on the menu, because it's in your memory. Peach cobbler, molasses cookies, even just a slice of bread with real butter. The memory makes your mouth water, and then dry up again. You glance at your food sack. It's lighter. You'll have to ration more carefully soon. The trail ahead is long, and the people who pace themselves best are the ones who reach Oregon with teeth intact. You lie down on your side that night, stomach full of grease and starch, mind full of fog. The stars above are beautiful, sure, but you don't look at them long. You're too tired to dream of anything sweet. It starts with a gurgle. Not yours, someone else's. Followed by the unmistakable rustle of urgency. A child stumbles past your blanket, clutching their stomach doubled over. Moments later, the sound you dread, vomiting into the dry earth. By the time the sun rises, 3 people in your group are sick. Cholera, or maybe dysentery, no one's sure. All you know is that it spreads like spilled ink, quick and unforgiving. One person drinks from the wrong stream, touches the wrong cup, and then suddenly everyone's stomachs are twisted into knots. The sick can go downhill fast, so fast in fact that some don't even make it through the day. You move quickly, more from fear than efficiency. The air feels tense. The sick are separated. Blankets are boiled. Dishes are rinsed with the last of the clean water. And still it spreads. Historians still argue whether cholera or dysentery claimed more lives on the trail. The truth is, both were devastating. Cholera especially was terrifying in its speed. People could go from perfectly fine in the morning to buried by nightfall, and there were no guarantees. The man who drank straight from the river might live. The careful mother who boiled everything might die. You feel the first churn in your stomach by noon. Panic maybe, hunger possibly, or something worse. You chew a peppermint leaf you saved from Missouri, more for comfort than medicine. A woman in the next wagon dies mid-afternoon. She'd only fallen ill that morning. Her husband digs the grave with a tin plate because their shovel was traded 3 days ago. The soil is dry, too shallow. Coyotes will find it by dawn. He knows it. We all know it. The others help him anyway. One of them whispers a prayer. Another marks the spot with a crooked stick and her bonnet. That's all there is for a funeral now. You try not to think about how many more shallow graves line the trail. Most were never marked. Some were made quickly without even removing the boots. It became common to bury people with their shoes sticking up as a kind of marker. It's both morbid and practical. You spot one later that evening. 2 old leather boots sticking out of a mound, toes pointed skyward like someone ready to take off. You stare too long. Lunch is skipped today. No one has an appetite. The sick groan, softly wrapped in damp blankets. You wish you could do something, but you have nothing. No medicine, no broth, just some boiled water and the hope that the fever breaks. Quirky tidbit. Some pioneers believed that drinking vinegar could prevent illness. They carried it in jars, drank it straight, even rubbed it on their skin. Others swore by chewing charcoal or swallowing bits of tobacco. All of it pretty much useless. But when you're desperate, even the strange becomes sacred. That night you boil everything. The tin plates, the forks, even the stones you use to hold the fire down. It doesn't help, not really. but it gives your hands something to do while your thoughts spiral. Your dreams are fevered. Someone's crying again, maybe a baby, maybe not. You're too tired to check, too scared to know. By morning, 2 more are gone. You never even knew their names. You're not sure what wakes you. Maybe it's the cold, maybe it's the mosquitoes, or maybe it's the realization that you've just spent the night on a bed of rocks and pine cones. You roll over slowly, every joint, stiff spine protesting. A long exhale turns to a cough as you sit up. The fire's out. The ashes glow faintly like a dying breath. Someone's already up coaxing a few embers with a twig. The smell of smoke clings to everything, your clothes, your hair, even your dreams. And yet somehow it's comforting. The camp stirs. Not fully awake, not fully asleep. You hear coughing. Always coughing. A spoon clinks softly in a tin mug. Someone is singing to a child, out of tune but sincere. The melody is carried away by the breeze, which brings with it something new buzzing. Mosquitoes. You swat one from your neck, then another from your hand. It's a losing battle. They're everywhere, drawn by the water nearby, the sweat on your skin, the lingering scent of old bacon grease. You wrap a scarf over your face and blink through the haze of morning. Historians still debate whether mosquitoes on the trail carried disease or were simply agents of torment. Either way, they made sleep nearly impossible and made waking life somehow worse. Diaries from the time often mention people going mad from the constant biting or lathering themselves in lard axle grease, even cow dung, just to keep them at bay. You try not to think about the cow dung part. Breakfast is weak tea and stale cornmeal mush. You stir it half-heartedly, then leave most of it in the bowl. Your stomach has its own opinions about what's edible these days. Today's path winds through a cluster of hills. Nothing steep yet, just enough incline to make your thighs burn and your breath short. You walk in silence, too tired for small talk. The crunch of boots, the creak of wagons, the occasional sneeze from the oxen, that's the music of your morning. Around noon you stop near a grove of trees for shade. It's the first real shade you've seen in days. You sit on a log, peel off your socks and inspect the damage. Blisters, cracks, dirt so ground into your skin it might be permanent. Someone once said your feet are your most valuable asset on the trail. Yours look like they were loaned out, stepped on, and returned broken. You change socks. You only have 3 pairs and you're down to the worst ones, thin, damp, and starting to smell like mushrooms. Still better than nothing. You notice a man sitting a few yards away staring into nothing. He's holding a comb, just running it through the air. No hair, just the motion. You wonder what he's lost. Quirky fact. Some travelers swore by garlic necklaces to keep insects away. Others tied dried sage around their necks, or even kept bits of skunk fur for good luck and scent masking. It didn't help, but it made the air even more interesting. As dusk settles, the wind picks up. The trees groan. The sky darkens earlier than usual, clouds moving in fast. A storm's coming. You scramble to cover the wagon with the oilcloth. It's already fraying at the edges, but it'll have to do. Someone nearby drops a pot in the mud. A child yells about their doll getting wet. You feel the first fat raindrop on your forehead. Then it pours. The fire sputters out in seconds. Blankets soak. Bread turns to paste. Your boots squish when you walk. And the wagon. The wheels sink into the ground an inch at a time. You watch helplessly as one of the barrels tips sideways, spilling water onto the ground like an insult. Sleep tonight is out of the question. You sit under the wagon instead, curled against a sack of beans, water dripping from the beams above. You're too wet to shiver, too tired to cry. The rain keeps falling and you can't help but wonder if this is just another day. What will tomorrow bring? The mud is thick enough to steal your boots. You learned that the hard way this morning, half a step into what used to be a path, and suddenly your right foot was free but your boot was not. You teetered, stumbled, and flopped into a squat with the grace of a sack of potatoes. Someone behind you laughed. You didn't. You dig the boot out with both hands. It squelches like a stuck hog and smells worse. You dump out the water and jam your foot back in. Socks soaked. Pride gone. Trail life. The rain stopped just before sunrise, but it's left everything soggy. The wagons creak with protest, their wheels stuck deep in sludge. It takes 4 people and 2 oxen to budge each one. Your muscles are sore, your fingers raw from rope burns and hauling. The trail ahead is a swampy mess, rutted, sunken, nearly impassable. You press forward anyway because there's nowhere else to go. Forward is the only direction allowed out here. Backward isn't an option, and standing still just means sinking deeper. Your oxen are sluggish. They strain against the yoke, grunting with each pull. One of them slips, knees buckling into the muck. You help dig its hooves free with a tin cup. This is your life now, digging animals out of soup made of dirt and regret. Historians still argue whether the spring rains or fall floods were more dangerous to trail travelers. Most agree it didn't matter. If it rained, you suffered. And if it didn't, you still suffered, just differently. You pass a wagon axle half buried in the mud. No wagon attached. No people in sight. Just a rotting strip of canvas flapping from a branch nearby like a lost signal flag. You don't stop. You don't ask. You just wonder how long it's been there. At midday, the mud turns to sticky clay. Better in theory, worse in practice. It sticks to your boots in layers, growing heavier with each step. You try to kick it off and nearly roll an ankle. You steady yourself against the wagon and laugh bitterly. One of the kids behind you copies the motion and slips entirely, landing in a puddle. They laugh too. At least someone's still finding joy in this mess. Lunch is, if you can even call it that, a strip of cold pork fat and some soggy crackers that once resembled hardtack. You try not to chew, just swallow fast and hope it doesn't come back up. A man a few wagons up complains about swamp fever. No one knows what he means. It could be malaria, it could be the flu, it could just be the soul-deep exhaustion of dragging your entire life through a bog. Quirky remedy. Some travelers believed chewing tree bark would strengthen your immune system. Others drank turpentine in drops. Yes, turpentine, believing it would cleanse the body. Spoiler, it didn't. By late afternoon, your hands are blistered. The rope you've been using to help pull the wagon has dug deep into your palms, and now they sting with every movement. You wrap them in strips of cloth and keep going. One woman walks with her eyes closed, muttering a hymn under her breath. It's oddly soothing. You camp on slightly higher ground, enough to avoid another muddy night. The firewood is damp, so you settle for a smoky, slow-burning fire. It doesn't warm much, but at least it's something to stare at besides your sore feet. Dinner is mostly silence. A few words, a few grunts. Someone sneezes. Another man talks about leaving something behind tomorrow. A heavy chest. Family heirlooms. It's just too much. The weight isn't worth the sentiment anymore. You lie down on a pile of damp blankets and close your eyes. But the rain returns. A gentle drizzle at first. Then a steady patter. You roll over, pull the oilcloth tighter, and try not to cry. You're too tired to even shiver. The mud outside thickens again. And tomorrow you'll walk through it like nothing happened. Because there's no other choice. You wake to wet boots, wet blankets, and the sound of someone arguing with a mule. The sky is a pale gray, the kind that doesn't promise rain. It just makes everything look like it's already been rained on. Your breath fogs in front of your face as you roll up your bedding, heavy with moisture and the scent of mildew. Today there's a river to cross. Again. This one is wider, deeper, angrier. It cuts through the land like a warning, swollen from recent rains, the current tugging fast and cold. You walk along the edge for a while, looking for a safe place to ford. The rocks are slick. The mud on the banks is soft. One misstep here and you'll be soaked, or worse, swept away. Someone mentions building a raft. Another suggests doubling back and looking for a ferry. Neither option feels promising. Historians still debate whether most pioneers preferred rafting or floating their wagons across rivers. Rafting took time, tools, and some knowledge of carpentry, 3 things in short supply. Floating a wagon was risky at best and deadly at worst. Many simply tried their luck fording, praying the current was kind and their oxen sure-footed. You're one of the lucky ones, kind of. The crossing doesn't go well, but you survive. You strip to your underlayers again, boots tied around your neck, and wade in. The water hits your chest. It's ice. You gasp, lose your footing briefly, then regain it by grabbing a strap on the wagon. Your fingers are numb by the time you reach the other side. The oxen panic halfway through. One starts thrashing. You shout. Someone else grabs a stick. It takes 5 minutes of chaos, but you make it across wet cold and -1 barrel. You sit down and wring out your clothes. The skin on your hands is pale and pruny. You can't stop shivering. The fire someone's trying to start nearby gives off more smoke than heat. Then you notice something missing. Your shoe. Just one. It floated off when you crossed and you didn't even notice until now. You hobble around camp looking for anything that might serve as a replacement. You settle for wrapping your foot in a length of canvas and tying it tight with string. It's not comfortable and it won't last, but you can't go barefoot. Not here. Quirky improvisation. Some pioneers used burlap sacks as shoes when theirs wore out. Others shaped scraps of leather into moccasins. One woman supposedly wove grass into makeshift slippers. Legend says they held up for 4 days. 4 glorious, itchy days. Back on the trail, every step is a squish. Your foot slides in the makeshift wrap. It rubs raw against your heel. You feel a blister forming, then popping, then reforming again. You try not to think about it. Your walking partner tells a story to pass the time. Something about a man who made it all the way to Oregon only to be kicked by his own mule on arrival. Died instantly. You laugh, then cough, then stop laughing. The land around you has changed. The grass is sparser now, the trees thinner. Dust kicks up more easily. You taste it before you see it dry, bitter, and relentless. Your lips crack again. You bleed just a little. You lick it off before anyone sees. You walk until the sun dips low, casting long shadows that stretch across the plains like hungry arms. Camp is set up in silence. No one wants to talk about the river, or the cold, or the lost barrel of flour that probably had your last apple in it. Dinner is stew if you're generous with the term. Bits of dried beef, a few shriveled carrots, and water barely brought to boil. You eat it anyway. You even scrape the bottom of the pot with your spoon. You lie down that night with your foot still wrapped, head resting on your satchel and eyes stinging from smoke. The stars are clearer here, sharper. You pick one and stare at it until sleep steals you. No dreams tonight. Just the sound of water still rushing in your ears. By now you're used to the smell. It clings to everyone and everything: sweat, livestock, damp wool, old food, and something else you can't quite name. You don't even flinch anymore when someone lifts an arm and reveals the unmistakable tang of unwashed pits in the summer sun. You're part of it now, the caravan of the unbathed. There are no baths on the trail. No soap, not enough water, and absolutely no privacy. At best, you find a creek and splash your face. Maybe rinse your feet if you're lucky and daring enough to take your boots off. A full body wash. That's a myth told by people who never actually made the trip. Your shirt sticks to your back with layers of grime. Your socks haven't been dry in 3 days. You've rotated the same 3 outfits so many times they've fused into your skin. One guy a few wagons ahead hasn't changed his hat since Missouri. It's starting to grow something green on the brim. You don't ask. Even the animals smell tired. The oxen are pungent. The mules have a sourness to them. And people smell like determination, despair, and onions. Historians still argue whether personal hygiene habits on the trail were strategic or purely survivalist. Some travelers swore by regular sponge baths using vinegar or rainwater. Others thought that bathing too often weakened the body and opened the skin to illness. There's at least one journal entry claiming a woman died after washing too thoroughly. That might have just been dramatic storytelling or a warning. You pass a stream midday. A few people rush to it like it's salvation. Shirts off, feet plunged in, faces dunked with relief. You consider joining, but the water's already turned muddy from all the activity. You rinse your hands and move on. There's no time for luxury. The wagon wheels creak and groan. One's starting to wobble again. The axle you patched with twine is holding for now. But it sings with every turn, like it's threatening to collapse just for fun. You eat lunch while walking a strip of jerky so tough you might have cracked a tooth. A heel of bread you softened with a sip of water. You don't stop walking. You can't. Every mile you don't walk today is a mile you curse tomorrow. The heat bears down like a grudge. The dust rises with every footstep. It fills your nose, your mouth, your eyes. You blink, but it doesn't help. One man ties a bandana across his face like a stagecoach bandit. You consider it, but your only spare is already holding your canteen closed. You think about perfume, about the smell of clean sheets, about laundry hung to dry in the spring breeze. Then someone coughs behind you, and you're pulled right back to the present where no one smells good, and clean is just a memory. Quirky fact. Some travelers sprinkled their clothes with crushed lavender or sagebrush to cover body odor. Others carried lumps of pine resin, chewing them like gum and rubbing the sap on their collars. It worked about as well as you'd imagine. Which is to say, not at all. You hear a commotion up ahead. A barrel has cracked open in someone's wagon. Flour spills into the dirt, creating a pale trail behind the wheels. They try to scoop it up with their hands, but the wind is faster. A child sneezes. The flour's gone. You help them tie the lid down tighter. Your hands are caked with sweat and dust. You wipe them on your shirt. That doesn't help. You keep walking. You arrive at camp just as the sun tips behind a hill. The golden light softens everything, even the grime on your face. For a moment you imagine you're glowing. Then someone sneezes again and ruins the spell. Tonight's dinner is boiled rice with dried apple chunks. It smells better than it tastes, but you eat every spoonful like it's a feast. You scrape the bowl clean and lick your fingers. There's nothing left to waste. After dinner, you sit by the fire watching the smoke dance up into the stars. Someone tries to tell a joke. No one laughs, but it's appreciated anyway. You lie down with your head on your pack. Your blanket smells like mildew and horse. You pull it close. Sleep creeps in. And tomorrow you'll wake up just as you are filthy stiff and still moving forward. Because out here, that's what survival smells like. You're already missing a barrel of beans and half a wheel of cheese when the news spreads someone's wagon was raided in the night. Stolen, not lost. That's a different kind of fear. It means that someone, not something, took it. Maybe a traveler, maybe a local, maybe someone desperate enough to sneak into a sleeping camp and quietly lift bags of flour like ghosts in the dust. You didn't hear a thing. Most people didn't. But in the morning there were boot prints that didn't match, and 2 fresh gaps where supplies had been. You feel it settle into the group like a fog. Distrust. Everyone starts eyeing everyone else. Voices are quieter. Fingers hover a little longer near rifles. You clutch your bag when you walk, even though it mostly contains damp socks and the last chunk of salt pork you've been saving like treasure. Historians still debate how much theft occurred on the Oregon Trail. Diaries paint different pictures, some full of neighborly trust, and sharing others filled with suspicion, missing items, and vague threats. There were no sheriffs out here. Just long miles, and the uneasy knowledge that not everyone you traveled with had your best interests at heart. You move more carefully now. Camp setups are quicker, tighter. The wagons circle a little closer together like teeth gritting for impact. You post a night watch, 1 person per shift, eyes wide, fire low. It doesn't help anyone sleep easier. It's not just theft, though. It's horses going missing. Wagons being lightened by others when no one's looking. You hear someone whisper that a family faked a broken wheel just to fall behind and avoid sharing food. You don't know if it's true, but you believe it anyway. Today's trail winds through rocky ridges. The path narrows. You have to lead the oxen single file between boulders that feel like sentries watching your every step. One slip here, and the whole wagon could tip. You keep a hand on the side, whispering to the animals like they're listening. Lunch is quick. A few leftover beans and a bit of lard on bread so tough it sounds hollow when you bite it. Someone offers dried pumpkin seeds. You trade a patch of cloth for a handful. They taste earthy and bitter. You love them. Your boots are giving up. The soles flap when you walk, and you've tied them tight with string. The canvas around your right ankle is stained red from old blisters. You try not to limp. Limping gets noticed, and weakness makes people nervous. A wind picks up in the afternoon, hot and sharp like a warning. It carries dust and old secrets. You pull your scarf up and press forward. You can feel it in your teeth. Quirky tradition. Some travelers tied rattlesnake skins to their wagons, believing it would ward off thieves and evil spirits alike. Others left small offerings, bits of bread or tobacco along the trail to keep unseen things happy. It's hard to say if it worked, but everyone respected the ritual. Tonight the fire burns low. People sit in tighter circles. Someone hums a hymn you don't recognize. One man sharpens a knife not for food, but for something else, just in case. You pull your blanket around your shoulders and clutch your satchel to your chest as you lie down. You keep one eye half open, pretending not to listen. But every twig snap makes your stomach tighten. You miss the days when your only worry was weevils in your bread. Now you're part of a traveling town with no laws and no guarantees. And when someone disappears, you don't ask where they went. You just keep walking. It begins with a climb. You didn't realize how high you'd come until your ears start to pop. The flat plains have vanished behind you, replaced by ridges, slopes, and the kind of rocks that jut up like warning signs. Ahead lies a stretch of land that looks more like a bad idea than a trail, steep, narrow, crumbling at the edges. The wagon's grown, so do you. The incline is just steep enough that walking feels like pushing against gravity with every muscle. And the wagons? They don't climb themselves. You tie ropes around the wheels, brace your feet in the dirt, and pull with every step. The oxen strain beside you, heads down, breath coming out in hot clouds. Halfway up, someone slips. Not you, thankfully. A young boy. He falls backward, rolls down a few feet, and lands hard. No broken bones, but a scraped face and shaken pride. He's quiet for the rest of the day. By mid-morning, your calves are screaming. Your back is soaked. The sun beats down from an angle that seems personally offended by your existence. A man 3 wagons over mutters something about turning back. No one responds. Historians still argue whether the hill country or the desert crossings were harder on travelers. Some journals speak of the Sierra Nevada as the final crucible, others curse the Blue Mountains. but they all agree the climbs broke people, not just physically, but emotionally, especially when they had to unload everything, carry it up by hand, then return for the rest. Which is exactly what happens next. The hill's too steep, the wagon's too heavy. So you unpack. Barrels, blankets, tools, food, each item cradled like it might shatter from being touched wrong. You climb it twice, then again, then once more. By the time the wagon finally makes it to the top, you feel like your spine has become a question mark. You rest briefly, legs trembling. The view would be breathtaking if your breath weren't already gone. You see a ribbon of green below dotted with moving dots, other travelers slowly making the same climb. You pity them, and dread the next ridge. Lunch is a potato boiled and bruised split 4 ways. It tastes like ashes and memories. You chew slowly, mostly to stretch time. One woman adds a pinch of salt from a jar she keeps in a medicine bottle. It's the fanciest thing you've seen in days. Then comes the descent. You'd think going down would be easier. It's not. Gravity becomes the enemy. The wagons want to run, to tip, to dash themselves against the rocks. So you tie ropes again, but this time from behind. You drag your heels digging into the dirt. Your arms ache. Your fingers bleed. And then it happens, one wagon loses its grip. You see it just as it begins to tilt. The left wheel rises. The right catches on a rock. It stutters, jerks, and then tips. A barrel flies. The canvas tears. The whole thing lands on its side with a crunch that silences everyone. No one is hurt, somehow, but the wagon is shattered. And it's not the kind you can fix with twine and hope. This one's staying here, a new monument to miscalculation. The family inside looks hollowed out. They kneel beside their broken things, trying to decide what to carry and what to abandon. A doll, a Bible, a pan with a cracked handle. Every item is weighed not in pounds, but in consequences. You help them lift what you can. A bag of flour, a baby cradle. Someone mutters, "Leave it," about the cradle. You pretend not to hear. Quirky moment. Some travelers carved their names into rocks at the top of ridges, messages for those who came after. You spot one today, J. Willard, 1846. Still alive, for now. You smile at the honesty, and wonder if anyone ever replied. Camp tonight is tense. The fire burns low. No one wants to talk about the wagon, but everyone keeps glancing at their own checking wheels and axles like nervous parents. Dinner is thin soup, mostly water. Someone found a wild onion. It tastes like luxury. You lie down and feel every bone argue about what you made it do today. Your legs twitch, your fingers throb, but your eyes close anyway. Because tomorrow, another hill, and maybe another broken wagon. You wake to the sound of someone giving birth. It's not dramatic, not like the stories, no screaming into the sky or desperate yelling. It's quiet, focused. A low moaning that cuts through the early morning fog like a violin string. A midwife is already there, kneeling on a folded blanket beside the wagon, sleeves rolled up, hair tied tight. You stay back. It's not that you don't care. It's that there's nothing you can do. And besides, in a place where every ounce counts and every step forward is survival, childbirth on the trail feels less like a miracle and more like a dare. Someone mutters, "Poor timing." Another shakes their head, as if life ever asks for permission out here. You eat a quiet breakfast, what's left of some boiled barley flavored with the faintest whisper of dried apple. It doesn't help the knot in your stomach, because babies are soft. The trail is not. And that baby is already behind before it's even taken its first breath. Historians still debate how many births took place along the Oregon Trail. Some say hundreds, others thousands. Many were never recorded. What we do know is this babies were born under wagons beside rivers during storms, and often without any real medical help. Just a woman with strong hands and a prayer. Today the caravan moves slowly. The mother stays behind, for now resting in the wagon. The others press forward. The ruts in the road are deep today, wheel-sized scars carved into the ground by wagons long since vanished. You step carefully, your foot sliding, once twisting your ankle just enough to make you wince. You walk it off. That's the rule now. If you're not dead, you're moving. The wind carries the scent of sagebrush and something sharper, maybe someone's fire from ahead. It's a comfort in a way. At least someone made it that far. Midday brings more medical surprises. A man ahead is bitten snake, maybe. No one saw it. His foot is swollen. The skin's gone red and tight. The local remedy, slicing the skin, sucking out the venom, wrapping it in a clean rag, and praying to whatever deity still listens. Quirky cure. Some folks believe tying a dead snake around the wound would draw the poison out. Others packed the bite with mud tobacco or even gunpowder. It rarely worked, but hope has a way of dressing up as science when there's nothing else to wear. You offer what little you have: a strip of cloth, a swallow of water. He thanks you. His voice is hoarse. His hands shake. No one says it, but you all wonder the same thing. Will he make it to tomorrow? The sun is unforgiving this afternoon. It bakes the trail, cracks the earth, and makes everything taste like dust. You sip from your canteen and find it almost empty. You measure your next swallow in droplets, not gulps. You reach a patch of shade near a cliff's edge and rest. There's a view, one of those wide open expanses that artists try to paint and always get wrong. Golden hills. A ribbon of trees along a stream. Sky so big it swallows thought. You sit, you breathe, you almost forget how tired you are. Then someone shouts, "The baby has arrived." Word spreads like wildfire. You walk back, careful not to limp too obviously. The mother is exhausted, pale eyes barely open. But she's smiling. And the baby small, red, wrinkled like a raisin, crying just loud enough to prove it's alive. You stand a few feet away, arms crossed. Others gather too. No one claps, no one cheers. But there's a moment, a shared silence that carries something heavier than celebration. Something sacred. And then it passes, because the trail keeps calling. Dinner is quiet. Some stale crackers softened in tea, a sliver of dried beef. You chew slowly, watching the fire twist and flicker like it's trying to speak. You lie down near the wagon's wheel, wrapping your coat tight around your shoulders. The baby cries once, twice, then sleeps. You try to do the same. But it's hard, because out here even birth feels like a warning. It doesn't take much to bury a person out here. The ground is often soft, at least the top layer. A few inches of dry earth, just enough to scrape through with a tin plate or the backside of a hatchet. No headstone, no ceremony. Just a name whispered, maybe a boot placed by the grave, and then you walk on. That's how the day begins. The man who was bitten didn't make it through the night. His breathing turned shallow, then silent. You heard it happen. Everyone did, but no one spoke. Not until morning, when his wife asked for help. 2 men dug the hole. Another wrapped him in a blanket. You didn't know him well. He gave you jerky once. That's enough to matter. You help carry him. You don't ask questions. Out here, death is fast, frequent, and quiet. The trail takes people like the wind takes smoke. Historians still argue whether disease, injury, or exhaustion claimed more lives on the Oregon Trail. Most agree that it wasn't the headline threats that got you, it was the little things. A scratch that got infected. A cold that turned to fever. A bruise that never healed. Out here, your body is always 2 bad decisions from becoming a landmark. The grave is shallow. The earth is hard below the surface. You help pile the rocks on top. It won't stop the coyotes, but maybe it'll slow them down. You leave the boot. Then you walk. The trail winds through dry hills today, brown grass, scorched patches of scrub. There's a rattler sunning itself on a rock nearby. You don't bother it. It doesn't bother you. That's the mutual understanding of the trail. Stay in your lane or die trying. You pass another grave by midday. This one marked with a bit of broken wood, initials carved by a shaking hand. A child's name. Probably. The letters are soft, barely there. Wind-worn. A man beside you says, "Too many graves." You nod. You don't say, "We're just getting started." Lunch is the last of your rice. You mix it with a slice of dried apple and a pinch of salt. It tastes like memory. You chew slowly, watching dust rise from the next wagon. Your shoulders ache. Your legs are beyond sore. You've reached the stage where discomfort is a baseline. You only notice it when it gets worse. Your back twinges when you bend. Your lips are cracked. You haven't smiled in 2 days. Quirky tradition. Some people carved their names into trees as they passed, hoping they'd return someday to see it still standing. Others wrote on bones, buffalo skulls, mostly leaving notes, directions, even jokes. You saw one yesterday, turn back, Oregon closed for cleaning. You laughed, then coughed. This evening you find a scrap of paper tied to a tree. A note. It reads, "Sarah died here, July 12th. We buried her deep. God willing, we'll meet again." No one knows who wrote it, but everyone reads it, twice. The fire tonight is smaller than usual. Wood is scarce. You burn dried dung as most do now. It smells like smoke and old hay. You don't mind. Dinner is weak stew, mostly water, a sliver of meat, and a few limp beans. You drink it, grateful for the warmth more than the taste. Someone coughs. Someone else whispers a hymn. You lie on your blanket, staring at the stars. You've never felt so small, so temporary. You close your eyes and try not to dream about the graves. You will pass more tomorrow. You might even dig one. You don't remember when you stopped hoping for Oregon. Not because you gave up exactly, but because the idea of arriving has begun to feel like a rumor. Something passed between wagons like a half-forgotten story. It's green there, someone said once. There's fruit on the trees. But today, all you see is more of the same. The road stretches on. Not a road really, just dirt pressed down by countless wheels, boots, and hooves. A scar across the land, and now you're part of it. The oxen are sluggish again. One limps. You pretend not to notice. Your foot still burns from the river crossing days ago. The wrap is soggy and smells like mildew. You adjust it, wince, and keep walking. The baby that was born, still alive. Still tiny. The mother barely speaks. Her eyes are dull. She walks like her bones are too tired to argue. You offer her some of your dry bread. She thanks you without smiling. No one smiles much anymore. Historians still argue whether morale or material was more essential for surviving the trail. Food runs out, tools break, but when spirits break, it's harder to fix. Some families sang to keep hope alive. Others told stories. You've noticed more people walking in silence now, heads down, eyes glazed. You pass a broken wagon today, half buried in sand. No names, no people. Just the wreckage, scattered pots, splintered wood, a child's shoe. You don't stop. You've learned not to. Someone ahead has a fever. They've tied a wet rag around their neck hoping it'll help. It won't. The wind dries it in minutes. But they keep walking. That's all anyone does now: walk, eat, sleep, bury, repeat. Lunch is dried cornmeal and grease. It tastes like guilt and gravel. You chew without tasting. Your stomach grumbles anyway. A man offers to trade a tin cup for a half-day's worth of food. No one bites. Cups don't feed oxen. Or babies. You drink from a stream that's more mud than water. You close your eyes and pretend it's clear. You don't even filter it anymore. You're just too tired. You hope your gut is stronger than your judgment. Quirky detail. Some travelers tried to carry chickens in cages strapped to their wagons for eggs. Most didn't survive more than a week. Between the bumps, the heat, and the lack of feed, the chickens died or escaped. You pass a feather in the grass today. You wonder if it came from a survivor. The terrain shifts again, rolling hills this time. It's supposed to mean you're closer. But you've heard that before. The same hills show up every 100 miles, promising nothing. Dinner is bean mash and silence. You sit by the fire and stare at your boots. The soles are threadbare. You can feel the ground through them. The socks inside are stiff. You've stopped caring about the smell. Someone starts humming. You don't know the tune, but you listen. You need the sound. The stars blink overhead. The wind cools. You lie down with the blanket pulled to your chin and one hand on your pack. And for the first time in a long time, you let yourself think of Oregon. Not as a promise, not as a reward. Just as a place. A place where maybe someday you'll stop walking. A place where maybe no one has to dig graves anymore. A place where you can be still. For more than a night. Word count 1095. Wind down final 300 words. The fire has burned down to its final coals. You lie still, wrapped in the weight of the trail, in the silence of 1,000 footsteps left behind. All around you the land breathes. Quiet, ancient, unmoved by your struggle. The wind whispers through dry grass. The oxen shift in their sleep. A wheel creaks softly once and goes quiet again. You feel it in your bones now. The journey, the miles, the weight of what you carried and what you left behind. The people you walked beside, the ones you didn't say goodbye to. The ones who didn't need goodbye, they just faded into the dust. But here you are, still moving, still breathing. Your hands are sore, your feet ache. But your heart somehow is still beating with a rhythm that matches the land around you. Slow, stubborn, steady. You think about the road ahead, how far it still stretches. But for now that doesn't matter. For now there is only this night, these stars, this breath, and the hope, quiet, fragile, glowing like the last ember of a campfire, that tomorrow might be gentler. Just a little. You close your eyes. The trail fades. And sleep, blessed, still silent, comes for you at last. End of script. Sweet dreams.